Yes and no. Knowing that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, regardless of what happens over these next 3 games, he's still arguably, I know Nick's already got him in his top 5. For many people, he's still arguably the 5th best point guard of all time, even if they lose this series. But if they win it, it's fairly definitive for most people. All right, he's 5th. Otherwise, he's now battling with Stockton and Jason Kidd and a few other guys for that 5th spot if they lose this. But here's the thing. If let's say he continues to struggle and they lose the series, that will be a large part of Chris Paul's narrative. And it's doubtful, as good as Phoenix is and as young as they are, there's a really good chance they don't get back to the finals. So that would be a large part of the rest of Chris Paul's career. That the playoff foibles that he's had. Why hasn't he won a ring? Well, in large part, because he has struggled in so many big moments. Now, once he retired, that would go away and he would just be celebrated as an all-time great player, one of the greatest to never win a ring. Because Charles Barkley, when you really look at his career, as great as he was, one of the reasons he at least didn't get closer to a ring or didn't win a ring was because he really never committed to defense. But we don't talk about that. Nobody really thinks about that. Karl Malone. We don't really talk about how, guess who Michael Jordan stole the ball from before he hit that iconic jump shot to finish off the Utah Jazz in Game 6. It was Karl Malone. Your big, burly power forward let a 2-guard steal the ball from you. You know, slap it right out of your hands. We don't really think about that. We just celebrate how great Karl Malone was. So over time, it would fade away. But for the next few years, this would be a large part of Chris Paul's negative. And let me say, Nick brought up the redemption factor with Isaiah Thomas. And he's right. You know, Isaiah was able to redeem himself with the 2 championships. But what people forget, in Isaiah's first finals, when he scored the 43 points on the bad ankle, that's what we remember. But Isaiah had 2 10-point games, a 13-point game, and a 15-point game in those finals. So he wasn't really good for the most part the rest of those finals, but he redeemed himself over the next 2 years. Chris Paul must redeem himself this year, this series. So he doesn't have the time that Isaiah had to redeem himself.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, though. The guys he's competing against for that 5th best point guard ever spot, ain't none of them have some amazing finals moment that outshines this. Listen, Walt Frazier does. He was unbelievable in both of his finals and one of the greatest Game 7s ever. But I don't think I think people look at him as a tick beneath the other guys. Defender. So there's the top 5. Right, same with Chris Paul, 7-time first-team all-defense for Walt Frazier, but I don't think anyone thinks he's the 5th greatest point guard ever. The guys we're talking about are 2-time MVP Steve Nash, 0 trips to the finals.
No,
John Stockton, he was not great in either one of those finals. Jason Kidd, with the best finals he ever played, they got swept out of by the Lakers. He was not that great the next year in the finals when they played the Spurs. Russell Westbrook, who some people would say should be in this discussion, was quite good in his 1 finals. We forget that. He was 27-6-6, but they lost in 5. There aren't a bunch of these point guard champions that Chris Paul is competing against. I know Jason Kidd has a title, but he averaged 8 points and 6 assists in that series. He's in a far, far different part of his career. I also think this, Brandon. I think that so if Chris Paul doesn't win the title, what does that mean? The Bucks did. If the Bucks win the title, what does that mean? That this season is remembered about Giannis. That we are not going to. I feel like one of the reasons that Barkley, and Karl Malone for that matter, they don't get a pass. They're the best players without a ring, but they're not killed, is they lost to Mike. And so it matters who you lose to.
Listen,
and if Giannis averages 35 a game, I don't think people are going to kill Chris Paul.
You're up 2-0.
But Chris is right. But Chris is right. Next year, they lose this and he continues to play bad. Next year, watching TNT or watching a game on Sunday with your family and you see Chris Paul comes out, they're going to be like, oh, I remember what happened last year. So it absolutely matters. Look, Wilds, CP3, the organization re-energizer, man, that's legacy building. We're talking about what he did in OKC. What he did this year with the Suns, they haven't been in the playoffs in 10 years. He has them in the finals. Not Booker, not Ayton, not Monty. Soon as he got traded or soon as he signed that deal, the next day he was in the gym with those boys and putting pressure on them. That is legacy building. What he's done these playoffs, playing through the nerve situation in his shoulder, getting his team to this situation, that's legacy building. He's been probably, top 2, top 3 storylines the last 2 months. And now all of a sudden you implode in a series. No, that hurts you. So I'm a guy that played 13 years in the National Football League, and I did some cool things. I'm not trying to put myself in discussion with a CP3. The dude is this next level, right? He's a bona fide Hall of Famer, like Chris said. First ballot. He'll walk right into it. But I never made the playoffs. So all the great stuff that we want to talk about, Brandon Marshall, 21 catches in a game, 6 seasons with 100 catches, #1 in the NFL. Nobody cares about that. People are going to be saying, oh, he never made the playoffs. I remember that, right? So that's part of that. That's what's going to be with me in that discussion. So the same thing with CP3. Yeah, you made it there, but you imploded. So if he doesn't get it done, he's going to have to carry that. And all the young players out there, that's why you got to make sure you're bigger than the basketball. You're bigger than the sport, because that could be a tough thing to carry when your identity is wrapped up in the game. So I do think it matters, Wilds. It's a bigger discussion than just what happens on the court and what's happening right now.
Yeah, so if he doesn't get it done, I think that's fine. I think Nick is 100% right. If he plays poorly, then yeah, it definitely affects his legacy. And if he plays poorly and has a definitive bad moment, like slipping and falling, Broussard, I think it 100% affects his legacy, because it works the other way. You got John Elway spinning, getting tackled and spinning. Like, that's the definitive moment of John Elway's career. There it is. So I'll throw it to you, Broussard. Why is Chris Paul's legacy right now, if the Suns don't win, that different than a pre-championship Peyton Manning? Nobody would argue that Peyton Manning wasn't an awesome quarterback. But before he won that first Super Bowl, everyone's like, great guy, can't get it done. Great guy, can't get it. Tom Brady can get it done, but Tom Brady owns him, he can't get it done. And that was a mark on Peyton Manning's resume, and I don't think any of us would deny it. We wouldn't be like, well, the Colts are constantly getting to the playoffs, and, look at his arm strength, and look at the numbers, and when you look at all-time quarterbacks, push that all to a side. People would say one thing: the guy can't get it done in the playoffs. And I think if Chris Paul plays poorly, people are going to hit him with the same thing that they used to hit Peyton Manning with.
But here's how it's a little different. Peyton Manning, as great as Chris Paul is, Peyton Manning was on a higher level. Like, Peyton Manning was the best player in the league, basically. That's what he was viewed as. Chris Paul is viewed as one of the best point guards in the league. But he was never viewed as, like, better than LeBron and better than Durant and, guys like that. So I think that's a big part of this discussion. Now, let me say this too, Wiles. Chris Paul, they just need to win. He can play poorly the rest of the series as long as they win. He doesn't have to be finals MVP. Nobody cares about that stuff. But he got to win. That's the thing. He has to will his team to
Nick
a
cares about that
He
stuff.
doesn't have
People
to play
care.
that well.
Right. Don't say that. Nick cared.
Oh, no.
I
do care. But
generally, he just has to win.
Wild, you just spurred something in my brain that I think is going to bring you to my side of the argument. Because Peyton Manning's the wrong example. What if Phillip Rivers took the Colts to the Super Bowl last year and they got blown out? Phillip Rivers, old player, never been to the Super Bowl, never gotten that far. And then he got there, and then all of a sudden he plays bad in the Super Bowl and they lose. Does that hurt him? Or it's like, hey, look, he actually got to the Super Bowl. That's what we're talking about here.
Conley.
But it's not a big...
No,
okay.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference.
He's not
Chris
Peyton
has a
Manning,
history.
guys.
Here's the difference. Chris has a
same with
history,
Phillip.
Nick. Remember it. Well, okay. I mean, I don't put Phillip Rivers in Chris Paul's class. But Chris Paul has a history.
Sure.
We would remember Oklahoma 2014. We remember Game 7 Utah, 7 points. Like, we would remember all the 2-0 and 3-1 blown
But we
leads.
also got to remember.
That's the difference. This is not a one-off. If this was a one-off, Chris just struggled. Okay, it's not a one-off.
But hold on. But on the other side of the ledger is, do we remember the game winner in a Game 7 against San Antonio at the buzzer? Do we remember the 41 points 12 days ago to knock out the Clippers? Do we remember Game 1 of these finals? It's not like it's only bad stuff for him. There's been some good and some bad. It's probably going to end without a championship. Guess what? That's of course not. But this is the problem that we have here. And I know we got a break, but I want to say this. It's the same thing that happens to James Harden. Guys that are all-time greats, but not all-time greatest, constantly get compared to all-time greatest. And it's like, well, can't get it done. Yeah, that's why they're not them. The reason that you're not Durant or LeBron is because you're not Durant or LeBron. The reason you're not Magic or Isaiah is because you're not Magic or Isaiah. But the guys you're competing with weren't either. Like, guess what? John Stockton, Chris Paul, they can all hang out together. It's a good room to be in. It's not the top room, but it's a good room. That's the room they're in.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.